I often get asked, how do I plan my adventures and find some amazing places like this, and this? So, in today's video, I thought I'd give you a deeper dive into how I plan my adventures and how I find amazing places like this with some of the tools that I use. But before we hit the open road, we have to go ahead and do some planning first. And well, to see these amazing places, a lot of work goes in here before I even hit the road or hit the trails. Today, we're going to be specifically talking about what tool I use and how I use it. With that being said, a lot of the trails here in Alberta, specifically the ones on our public land, have been marked out and maps have been provided to the general public. Furthermore, those who choose to not follow the map and go on trails either they're not supposed to, or trails that aren't even open, are risking heavy fines and will damaging some very sensitive ecosystems that are honestly just gonna get a bunch more places closed. I could probably make a whole video just on this topic, but that's for another day, because today we're talking about how to plan your epic adventures. But as you guys know, I spend a lot of time here in Alberta exploring the trails that are mapped out, as well as spending some of my most epic trips out in BC. Out in BC, things are a little bit different, and well, everything's a little more unknown as there's a range of logging roads, trails, and everything in between, which make things a little difficult if you're heading out there with no plan or no maps, because you'll never know where you're going to end up. And this is where these mapping tools really start to come into their own. For me in particular, I use Gaia or Gaia Premium as my main tool to map and plan my trips. And while there is plenty of other tools out there, specifically ones that do show you trails and trails that people have mapped, like Onx or Offroad, I have found that Gaia works the best for me and my planning skills, as well as avoid some of the concerns I have with other mapping tools that uses the public's tracks to post trails publicly. And now that I've told you exactly what tool I'm using, you're probably wondering how I find these amazing places on Gaia. Well, let's go ahead and I'll show you. And well, it all starts off here when I select an area that I want to go explore. And with an area selected, we'll go ahead and open up Gaia and load up our map to where we want to go. So I want to be exploring this region here. Looking at the topographical map, we do have some information. We can look at our main roads, we can look at some side roads and some trails here, maybe even some water. But this is where Gaia really starts to come into its own, and the reason I chose it in the first place is I will go ahead and pull up my map layer here on the top left hand side, and it will show us all the different layers. Well, there's plenty more of layers that we can go ahead and use. I use some specific ones. Here in Canada, I love the Backroads Canada map. It will go ahead, we'll pop that right up here, and all of a sudden we get all these trails right here. These trails show us all the little logging roads, all the little side branches, and everything that we're thinking we might explore. And as we explore it, we're gonna see maybe there's some places that we want to specifically focus on, like maybe this trail right here looks good. And I actually see it's an FRS trail, which is a Forest Service road here in BC. So we know this might be something that is going to be of interest for us. So I'm gonna go ahead, and I'm just gonna go ahead and drop a waypoint here. We'll say this is FSR, Forest Service Road, and then maybe we'll go ahead, maybe drop some notes. This is a Scotch Creek one. So there we go, we have Scotch Creek. And maybe even if you're like me, you might even have specific markers. So this is a trail, it's gonna be FSRS, so it's gonna be green, there we go. We have this marked off on our map. So we can start to go ahead and point out points of interest. So maybe maybe we have another point of interest here, like this marine park. I think this might be a good place. Maybe we can find a campsite here. So camp site. Go ahead, mark this off. Let's make sure we use our color coding. And I think it's gonna be pretty easy to get into, so I'm gonna go ahead and mark it green. As you continue to develop your maps in Gaia, you will start to develop your own system. As I said, I have saved items, and then I have specific ways I mark stuff. So green, yellow, and red, depending on the difficulty, and then different icons for different things. Maybe there's a waterfall up here I want to mark, or maybe there's a lake I want to check out. So we have a few points of interest. We do have a map here, but there's a lot of information that's missing. So this is where Gaia, again, really is the main reason I chose it, is I can open up layers again. I want to go look at specifically, I'm concerned, maybe I'm going in a week and I want to make sure there's no wildfires. So this is when I have up on BC, is we can go ahead, we can open this up. Thankfully, We don't have any wildfires in the region right now, so there's no red marks. But once we start to see that in this season, we'll actually start to see those. This is really good for when you're on the trail and you're planning on the go. You want to make sure that you're staying right out of the way of the wildfires. Another thing is maybe the satellite maps. I like to use satellite maps a lot to validate what we're looking at. So we're going to turn up our satellite maps quite a bit actually. And we're going to just pull the backroads map to a lighter percentage and bring it up top. Gaia allows you to stack them. This is the main reason I have Gaia, is because I can go ahead and start stacking stuff. And then all of a sudden we have a lot more information. We can see that here, this is a pipeline according to our legend that we can go ahead and pull up here. So we're looking at here and we're going, okay, this is an unmaintained high clearance road right here. It's once I highlight it, it goes, hey, this is a unmaintained road. So I know that that is probably a logging road. They're usually classified as unmaintained. There we go. That we now understand. Is this the minor road is the forest surface road? So I know that that's going to be an accessible road. So we are starting to get a lot more information here. Another thing is, as I was mentioning, is we have many layers. So we can see all the places where they're doing logging. Again, you want to check your dates on these maps. We're going to be looking at the satellite map. We're looking at 2020 here, and 2021 and 2022. So they don't specify it. So again, I'm going to pull up another one of my favorite layers here. We're going to be looking at fresh sat. It's pretty snowy out there, so I don't know how much information we're going to be getting, but we're going to pull up fresh sat, and it's going to pull us up to a fresh satellite view. It looks like this was taken 04, 05, 06. So there is actually not a lot of snow in that region right now. So again, good information we're able to pull up. And with all this information, we can go ahead and start planning our route. So let's say we have two places we want to camp and a trail we want to do. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to go to find the start of this trail. BC, being wonderful BC, looks like the start of the trail is way back here. So that's going to be our mission, our plan for that day. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to go into our route now. We're going to go ahead, we're going to say, like, let's call this BC trip 2, BC trip 2. And we can make some notes. If you're like me, maybe even put it in a category there. And you're going to go ahead and you're going to start adding your waypoint mission essentially. So you can go ahead and just mark the kind of general area. As you can see, it's going to start giving us our elevation. It's going to start giving us a bunch of information. It does think I'm in hiking mode. Maybe we'll change that to off-roading so that we're able to do that. So it is now selected driving, and we can go ahead and start planning our route. I think we need to make it over here, right? So we're going to go ahead. It's going to give us a pink line. There we go. So where you want to end up over here. It's telling us to take the side trail because it's the shortest, but we want to make our way through here. So I'm going to add a waypoint maybe halfway here. So it knows we want to take this trail, and it's going to find us the right way through all these logging roads. And eventually it's going to get us to the place we want to stay for the night, right here. And there we go. So we have our first map of the day. So you can see our elevation gain. You can see how much distance. We got 39 miles. And I don't know why my stuff is in imperial. It should be in metric, but we have our whole plan there. So you can go ahead, save that. You can even go ahead, share it to friends, and it syncs to your phone. So you hop in the car, get this ready to go, and you can see this map. You can see your whole trip on the trail, which is perfect and kind of helps you figure stuff out. As I said, make sure you have a backup plan, maybe put some saved items where maybe you have camp 1 and camp 2, just in case something happens. But you could go ahead, you can maybe add some more stuff, like let's say you want to go up here or maybe here. You can go ahead and just select more and more and kind of plan out your whole trip like that. And when we zoom out, we can see our whole trip. And then just like this, you have your whole trip planned. And then, as I said, you could share it with your whole team. Be like, hey, this is a route we're doing. Here's our points of interest. Here's our backup plan. This is kind of what we're thinking. And you have everyone on the same page. Gaia also lets you add, among the hundreds of different layers you have in the premium version of Gaia, you can add your own custom source here. This is where you'd want to add, especially in BC, top-notch navigator maps. They are wonderful out here. They have a lot more data than this, but you can use this with all your other maps here. There's 255 US layers here. So you have all this data you can kind of comb through. It does take a little bit more work, obviously, than just going on OnxOffroad, but this is going to get you a much better experience. And this is how, as I say, I find all the amazing places. So you can see, like, we have a little bit of elevation gain here, but it's not as much as I wanted. I really want to figure out how to get to the top of this mountain. So let's see if we can just drag this waypoint up here, and will it find me a route? So there we go. It says, hey, this is the logging road you should take. And we can tell, well, this is pretty much the top of the mountain here. So we are pretty much going to get up here. We want to, again, validate with your different maps. And sometimes things don't go to plan, but you can validate with your maps here. Go, let's take a look at this. It does look like there is a decommissioned logging road. It's pretty covered up here. So we might want to mark this as a maybe, but it's on our map and we have a planned route that we can go ahead and explore. And then once you have your route planned, as I mentioned, it will automatically sync with your phone. And with your phone, you can also go ahead and download a certain area offline. So you can say like, I want this whole area right here offline. So you can go ahead and save a specific area to offline on your phone. So even if you don't have service, you still have your maps. One word of caution though is your background maps and your topo isn't going to cause a lot of storage space to be used up. But once you start downloading satellite maps, be cautious of how much you're storing. You would probably not want to store this much. This is a very large area, but you could probably store smaller bits of along your trail and you'd be good to go. And after all the planning, you still want to use Gaia on your adventures. So for me personally, I like to use Gaia on my phone through Apple CarPlay. So I have an Apple CarPlay enabled deck. So I go ahead, plug in my phone to the deck, and all of a sudden I have Gaia on my screen. This allows me to go ahead, see my waypoints, see my tracks and so forth, but also use it as a traditional map with the scrolling and doing all that other stuff. You do have to play around with the layers a bit in the app to get it to display appropriately on your screen, but that is just something when you're dealing with so many layers, as you guys have seen. I like to use layers just to see exactly what I'm dealing with on the trail. But even with all that planning and even sticking to your route on the trail, sometimes your ventures just don't go to plan. And well, that's when you have to kick it into plan B. And when it comes to that, I break out Gaia on my iPad and use it as a traditional map because the iPads don't have GPS, and have my downloaded layers on here, and we can explore the map here. This is extremely helpful when you're on a campsite and you're trying to plan out your next day's route, or as I said, sometimes things just don't go as planned. And there you go. You now know how I explore some of these amazing places and plan my trips. Let me know down below if you are one of the people using Gaia, or if you use a different tool that maybe I mentioned in this video, or something that I don't know about. Also, while you're down there, don't forget to go ahead and check out the channel memberships to support the channel, as well as get some exclusive perks and see some of my posts from my latest Japan trip. And while you're down there, also, don't forget to check out Flat4 Off-Road and support our business here in Calgary, Alberta. But that is going to be it for today, so I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I hope you learned a little bit of something, and I will see you in the next adventure.